I have chosen to do my lesson on from our Spiritual Disciplines Handbook, and it will be pages 96 through 97 if you would like to look along. The topic that I chose to do this lesson on is unplugging. It's something that I have actually been working on myself, and so when I came to this assignment, I immediately remembered this when flipping through this textbook as we have gone through this course. So, the author of our textbook um, talks about going on vacation and how they are on the computer like 8 hours a day, and our lives are so focused on technology and um, internet and social media, and our cell phones are stuck to our hands, and our eyes are constantly glued to some form of technology, whether it be a phone, a computer, a tablet, anything, TVs, or even a huge one. Um, we just get so um, consumed by Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and it even mentions LinkedIn and, blogging and stuff like that, that we get so distracted. And over the last few months, I've actually felt really convicted of this because I am a social media guru, and I really enjoy connecting with other people and connecting with, it's how I stay in touch with my youth girls, and uh, parents would communicate with parents that way. And my husband's a teacher, so he communicates a lot of his information with parents on there too. However, we have a 5-year-old son, and so a reason I have felt convicted by this lately is because I see how much he wants it and how much we have allowed him to have it. And we have started, especially with the weather getting nice and it turned into summer, we've actually made him cut back on screen time and how much he stays in on an iPad or on one of our phones. And we noticed with him that it changed his attitude drastically. So, in the time that he would normally be on an iPad or a phone, he has to read a book. And so it hit me one day, and I was just like, what if I did this for myself? What if I limited my screen time and the time that I was usually on my phone, on Facebook, scrolling and mom shaming myself because my mom and skills aren't up as much as someone else's, comparing myself to somebody else and all that other stuff. I decided to stop, and sometimes whenever I think about it, I will use that time to pray, or I will use that time to read my Bible. Um, and I think, in the text, one of the quotes that he says is, unplugging recognizes that personal beings are created for personal interaction by a personal God. We need to be in the presence of each other. And I think that that's so important. I even noticed, like, once I started thinking about what is my topic going to be for this assignment, I tried to make it more than just an assignment, and I tried to look at my life as far as how much technology do I actually use? And the answer is like all the time. Um, I'm a manager, an office manager, so I'm on the computer all day long, checking emails. Um, I also do research for our neonatal ICU and collect data and stuff like that. So always, always, always in the computer researching numbers and stuff like that. But I even noticed, like, when I'm at lunch with a group of people, how many of us all of a sudden like take out our phones and we scroll the whole time we're sitting there with each other. And I feel like 5 years ago, in the same situation, we didn't pull our phones out. If we did, it was to, maybe I work at a hospital, so it may be to check in and say, hey, how's your day going, to your spouse or whomever. And that was it. But now it's so consumed by other things. And so some of the questions that go along with this lesson kind of hit me, and I surprised myself on the way that I actually answered these questions. So I encourage you to answer these questions as well. I was thinking about changing them up some, but I was just like, no, they're exactly what need to be asked for this lesson. And so if you are watching this, I encourage you to answer these questions as well. Just, in your mind as I ask them. So it says, how has technology influenced your relationships? Do friends and family complain about the amount of time you spend online? What is their real concern? And when I answered that for myself, I was like, when me and my husband are laying in bed at the end of the day, we could be talking about how our days were. We could be talking about things that regard our children, anything, finances, anything. And we are both usually sitting there on our phones watching videos or scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and not even texting someone else. We're usually just consumed with everyone else's lives, just to put it honestly. Um, and I think we both have complained. Get off your phone, get off your phone. You just missed this that the baby did because you were on your phone. And I think that both of us struggle with that. It's not just me, it's not just him. I would say it's an equal balance. And we complained about our son doing it. And if I go out to eat with a group of people where I have been more conscious to leave my phone in my purse or face down on the table or on vibrate so that I'm not constantly hearing it go off, I've noticed that people can't communicate anymore. We've lost the interpersonal skills that it takes to communicate because we are so dependent on our keyboard to communicate for us and our fingers. We depend on those things. So the next question is, are you online for both work and pleasure? What do you like about being online and what don't you like about it? So I am mainly on a computer for work. I don't get on my laptop a lot unless I'm doing schoolwork or I remote in to work from home. Um, I stay on my phone for 95% of connecting with other people, social media and stuff like that. That's what I would say I liked about being online is I have friends from high school and college and family that live in other states and um, just friends that have children around the same ages as mine, or keeping in touch with teachers from my kids' school and um, our student ministry and things like that. Like it just makes it an easy avenue to keep the communication going between people who you really need to communicate with. What sort of temptation does cyberspace hold for you, and how do you address these temptations? I would honestly say that I have never truly had a temptation whenever it comes to being on the internet. Um, I think the thing that tempts me the most, and for moms or any female can relate to this, one thing that has become so, I feel like more talked about in the last year or two is how women are comparing themselves to other women on the internet. And it makes us feel bad about ourselves if we're not up to par with this other lady that we follow on social media. And I would have to say that that is my worst temptation, is when I know one of my friends has just thrown their kids a birthday party and I almost obsess over going to their page to look at their birthday party pictures because I want to make sure that my kid's birthday party that's coming up is just as good as their kid's birthday party. And we don't get that from anybody else. We do that to ourselves. I do that to myself. And it's a problem. And that is what this spiritual discipline challenged me for, is because just some of the things that the author says and he brings to point in this, it's just the, you know, simple things such as unplug and look into the eyes of another human face and see the beauty of God's creation. And just she talks about having to juggle like almost like a virtual life and your real life. And that is so challenging sometimes. So challenging because we can hide behind the face of a screen. And one thing that I have always taught my youth girls whenever it comes to fixing problems and building relationships is let's not fix this problem over a text message. Let's not fix this problem talking on the phone. We need to fix this problem sitting face to face. And a lot of the times it's a joke between us now because a lot of them will say, don't ask Mary Beth for advice because she's going to make you have confrontation. And we don't like confrontation, but who does? I had to learn the hard way in my teenage years and in my young adult years that confrontation is not fun. Face to face confrontation is not fun, but face to face confrontation is by far the only way that you can solve an issue or a problem between you and someone else. My husband likes to call them keyboard warriors, the people who will type away on their keyboard and they will, belittle you and bully you and make you feel way less than you should when confronting with an issue than they would if they were sitting face to face with you. Because a lot of the times those things aren't going to come out of their mouth, but they can come out from their fingers. That is one important piece of unplugging, the most important piece of unplugging. Just like the author says, unplug and look into the eyes of another human being. It doesn't have to be just by confrontation. To have a conversation with anyone about your day or the coworker. Sometimes it's easier to sit at my desk and her be 3 doors down in her office and me text her instead of go to her and talk to her and tell her what's going on or what I may need. Face-to-face communication is so important. Where are you using technology to avoid face-to-face encounters? So I feel like I just probably answered this question, but I think that texting, Facebook, direct messaging on Instagram and on Twitter, these things all happen when we use technology, I think, the biggest to avoid conflict face to face. Have you ever been yelled at via email? And what was that like for you? I have. And I have yelled at people through email myself. Um, that is what I'm saying, is that I have been on both sides of everything when it comes to technology and yelling, being the one that yelled, being the one who was yelled at. I have confronted people that should have been confronted face to face, but I have done it over text message or a phone call or an email. Um, I have tried to deal with problems that way, and quite frankly, they don't get solved. Um, Communication is key, and we all know that. Um, so part of the spiritual exercise for this discipline is to keep track of the amount of time you spend using digital and electronic communication each day. How much time does this amount to each week? Okay, so I did this assessment. Actually, what I did was there is on my iPhone, I was able to get like a weekly report. I opted in to getting the weekly report of how much screen time that I average per day. My average for a course of 7 days was over 4 hours per day over 7 days. That's just on my phone. That does not include the time I spend on my computer at work or on a tablet if I use my son's iPad for something quick or my husband's. That's only my phone. It was pretty embarrassing, actually. Keep track of the uninterrupted time you spend in the process of family and friends each day and week. Compare the times. So, this is how I process this in my head whenever I started um, reading over this. Um, I'm at work 8 hours. I usually don't get on my phone in the mornings because I set my alarm and I get up and I get ready. And I take my kids to the babysitters. I go to work. So I'm at work for 8 hours. I may get on my phone a few times during the day to text super quick. Probably say spend an hour on my phone um, each day during the day. Then, when I get home from work, say around 5, come home, we go to supper, and just even thinking about adding 3 hours on to 5 o'clock, that's 8 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, I put my kids to bed, except for right now. You can probably hear them. But 9 o'clock during the school year, I'll preface it with that. We um, put them to bed at 9 o'clock. And so if I just add up from 5 to 8, that's 3 hours. Then I've spent 1 hour not being like this. That's horrible. So I would challenge you to just think about that. And if you have an iPhone, then there are apps you can download that tell you how much time you spend on your phone. It'll even tell you, like, break it down and tell you if you've spent most of your time on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it may be. Is God inviting you to reprioritize anything based on this awareness? Yes, He is. If you cut back using the computer 1 hour a week, how would you use this time to be in the presence of God or others? So I follow this devotional called Proverbs 31 Ministries. If you've never heard of it, especially ladies, it's a great ministry to follow. They do online Bible studies through Facebook groups. And one of the things that they do is you purchase the book and then you get in this community of people all over the world that have purchased a devotional. And it's kind of just like an open forum discussing this devotional over a 4, 5, 6 week period of time. So I honestly would say that if I was cutting back to just 1 hour a day, and I wanted to be effective in my relationship with God, or if you are wanting to cut back your technology and your FaceTime with your phone to 1 hour a day, and you want to be effective at the same time with your relationship with God and growing your relationship with God, I would find something like that. I would find a group that does online Bible studies. I would find a way, maybe lead the online Bible study and encourage a group of people to join this online group Bible study with you. And um, that's what I would do. Um, so the second part of our exercise is declare a digital free time period in each day or week. Let people know when you are available and you will get back with them. So in this course, we've talked a lot about the Sabbath, and um, Sundays are a little crazy for us because we are in the ministry, and so Sundays are like a work day for us because um, we get to church really early, and we're usually the last ones to leave. And then we go to lunch, more than likely with a group of people, and then we come home and we put our kids down to nap, and then it's time to go back to church. So we're usually at church for approximately 5 to 6 hours on a Sunday. Um, it's hard to be um, a part-time in the ministry part-time because you start all over on Monday with a full-time job. And so the time that we are home on Sundays, I have started devoting that to be my technology free time. Even if it's taking a nap with my kids, I've never really laid down with them on a Sunday afternoon. So I turn my phone off during that time, or whether it be rereading the Sunday school lesson that I taught that morning to see what I could get from it and how I can grow from what I actually taught. Um, so that is what I have started doing on Sunday afternoons, and using that 2 to 3 hours on Sunday afternoons to just fully unplug and rest in the presence of God. And so if your Sundays are a lot like our Sundays, then I would encourage you to do the same. What is it like for you to receive a handwritten letter from a friend? And then it talks about, writing a non electronic letter to a friend. So I had surgery, a major surgery, 2 weeks ago, and we had people from our church who brought us meals through the course of a week, and just some people who helped out with our kids that week while I was in the hospital, and just people that ministered to us through that time. And so last week, when I picked this one out, I actually had bought some new note cards like a year ago, and I have not used them. And so I put them to use, and I wrote hand thank you cards. And my husband actually joked with me because I had to go to the store and buy stamps. And he said, I can't believe you're not just sending this over a text message or a Facebook message. And I said, I love getting mail. I love getting a card or a letter that is addressed to me. And I am 30 years old. And so I was like, I know they'll love getting a letter. I wrote thank you cards, and the response we got from our friends has been so funny because some of them are a lot younger than us that are in like the small group that we lead for young adults at our church. And so they were like, I have not gotten a handwritten letter in years. And so it was really funny because that just like old way of life has just gone. It's gone, and it's really sad actually, because we have teenagers in our youth group that don't even know how to address an envelope, and it's really eye-opening at how much we depend on technology and the internet to do everything for us. And it's really sad, but yeah. So the last part is which relationships in your life need FaceTime, and to plan some face to face time with some people during this next week or so. So I thought about the most important relationship to me outside of my walk with Christ is my relationship with my husband. Um, so from recovering from this surgery and him taking care of me, I have had a newfound love for him, and we've had 3 children, and I've fallen in love with him more every time. But our relationship sometimes gets to the side because of the busyness of our lives, and we communicate a lot by phone, by text message during the day. We think about things that we could have thought about the night before, probably if we weren't on our phone, the next day while we're both at work. And we handle a lot of situations and problems through text messages because it comes up while we're at work and we're not together. One thing that has come to my attention is how much time we don't spend alone without our phones in our hands. So past weekend, we went out, just us two. We normally have a group with us, but just us two. And we kept our phones in the car during our date. And it was crazy. At first, we just kind of looked at each other like we didn't know what to talk about. As we moved along, um, it was it was just great. We were laughing and we were cutting up and we were talking. We brought up like how we first started dating almost 10 years ago, and just just crazy things that we had not talked about in forever. And so it's a relationship that I cherish and I don't want to take for granted. And I want to work on it more and more each and every day. And so we have made a deal that when we go out together, just us two, that we're going to not be on our phones and we're going to talk. And I think it's so important. And so I challenge you to think of that person. If you're not married, if you are married, who is that person that you want to have that type of relationship with? So I hope this has encouraged you. I hope that this spiritual discipline on unplugging has made you think of ways that you can unplug. And I will tell you that, it almost changes your attitude because you're having relationships with people and not a phone. And that's what God intended. God intended for us to have relationships with people, not with cell phones. And He encourages us to love people and not our cell phones. And so I encourage you to do the same. And thank you for listening.